Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to do something different. I wanted to start doing my own top 10 games. And in this top 10 games, I'm going to do one that I've had a lot of fun playing through and I think are great little games. And that's going to be, I'm going to do my Tiny Epic top 10. Now, Gameling Games is most known for their Tiny Epic line. They've done a lot of other games, but I believe that if you hear Gameling Games, you're going to think, in general, Tiny Epic. And Tiny Epic games are basically what they sound like. They're going to be the idea of an epic game in a small box. And all these boxes are the same size. The idea is you could take a lot of really epic games with you to conventions or to friends and family and be able to play them so they don't take up a lot of space in your board gaming library. So just as a general caveat, I wanted to mention that I didn't include Tiny Epic Vikings. As at the time of this recording, Tiny Epic Vikings hasn't been released yet, and I actually haven't played Tiny Epic Vikings yet. So keep that in mind. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go over my top 10 Tiny Epic games. Now, the first one on this list is Tiny Epic Kingdoms. In Tiny Epic Kingdoms, you are going to be playing a 4X style game and trying to explore, exterminate, exploit, and expand your empire throughout the game. Now, this is going to be in the lightest sense of a 4X game, but it does feel like you are moving around the board and trying to get the most territory on there. You're trying to push out your opponents, and you're trying to be able to lord over the different valuable regions to do different things. So I really do like this game a lot, and it is a great entry in the Tiny Epic Kingdom, or Tiny Epic line itself. The next game is Tiny Epic Defenders. Now, I do have a caveat with Tiny Epic Defenders. I really, really like it with the expansion. The expansion makes it really hard. Where the base game, Tiny Epic Defenders, we were able to beat it most of the time, but when you add the expansion in, and it has tons of different modules in it to add a whole bunch of replayability in the game, it becomes much more difficult. Tiny Epic Defenders is a cooperative game, and you're trying to protect your kingdom from like hordes of minions and monsters coming in and trying to destroy the kingdom itself. So you have to go out to the different regions there and mitigate problems and try to cleanse the land all while being attacked from all sides. So this really gives like a tower defense feel game. So if you like that type of game, I would highly recommend Tiny Epic Defenders. But that is my number 9. My next game up is going to be my number 8 game, and that is Tiny Epic Mechs. So Tiny Epic Mechs came at a time when I just got off playing Adrenaline. And Adrenaline is a fine game, but I felt that Adrenaline had some balancing issues in the game itself. This game, Tiny Epic Mechs, feels a lot like Adrenaline, but it took what I felt was off balance in Adrenaline and fixed it in Tiny Epic Mechs. Now, there's a lot more to Tiny Epic Mechs than I think even Adrenaline, which is a big box game. I really like running around the board, trying to upgrade to the larger mechs, trying to get into the Mega Mech suit, and just do devastating damage throughout the game. It is a programmed movement game, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think it is a really good programmed movement game. You don't have a lot of like, oh, I messed up my movement, I'm just going to go around and ram myself into a wall for a little while, like you would have with Robo Rally and some other games like that. So I think the program movement in here, for people that don't like program movement, are probably going to be okay with the program movement in Tiny Epic Mechs. So that was my number 8 Tiny Epic Mechs. My number 7 is a surprise to me. I don't normally like if you ever played like Final Fantasy Tactics. I wasn't really a big fan of Final Fantasy Tactics at all, but I really did love Tiny Epic Tactics, which gives me the feel of like when I did play Final Fantasy Tactics, only in a better way. So in Tiny Epic Tactics, you're basically going to have a squad of uh, meeples. You're going to have your sorcerer, warrior, and beastmen and such, and you're going to try to score as much points as you can by eliminating your opponents, controlling different areas. We'll have uh, points gained by having the majority in certain areas on the board, and it is a 3D map, which is really cool. So there is things for being on the higher ground. There's tunnels that you can go through. There's just a lot, and there's a lot in, like, you could do custom configurations with the map. They have a map pack for Tiny Epic Tactics, which I haven't got yet, but I'm really, really looking forward to getting in the future, which lets you have more opportunities to change around the board and stuff. So I really like Tiny Epic Tactics, and Tiny Epic Tactics is my number 7. My number 6, now a lot of these, you'll see that I have like a crossover from something I liked in my childhood to these games in here, and this is no exception. I really loved playing Zelda all throughout my childhood, and I love playing Zelda now. And Tiny Epic Quest really gives me the feel of playing Zelda. In Tiny Epic Quest, you are basically playing in a Zelda-ish world and exploring through this. You're trying to get more magic. You're trying to beat goblins. You're trying to find different relics. There's all sorts of really cool things. And this is the first game that I played with their item meeples, where these little meeples here, where you can mix and match different equipment that you're gaining throughout the game and place it on there. There is a lot of different decisions that you have in Tiny Epic Quest and routes for victory. I really love the plethora of things that you can do and still have valid choices to have a good strategy in this game. Tiny Epic Quest is amazing, and if you like Zelda-like games, you're going to probably love Tiny Epic Quest. And Tiny Epic Quest was my number 6. So my number 5 game is a theme that I think is overdone in board games, but I really like it. So, what are you going to say? And that is Tiny Epic Zombies. So in Tiny Epic Zombies, it's a straight up survival game. There's tons of different modes that you can play through this game. There's one versus many, where you can play as the zombies. There's a cooperative mode, which I like the best. There's tons of different modes in Tiny Epic Zombies and tons of replayability in the game. In Tiny Epic Zombies, there's all these different rooms that you can go in, and they all have different interactions and things to think about and do. And you have different objectives that you have to complete in order to win the game. Really, really like this game. Really like the whole barrier thing. We have to keep the barriers going to keep the zombies out. Really great zombie game. So if you like zombie games, or you like zombie games but you think you're getting tired of all the other zombie games out there, you may still want to try Tiny Epic Zombies, because it's a really good implementation. Really fun. Plays in, I believe it's like 60 minutes, so it doesn't take overly long to play, and it's really engaging. So that is my number 5, Tiny Epic Zombies. My number 4 is a very, very difficult game. So it's really hard to beat this game, but it's a lot of fun trying. It reminds me a lot of the difficulty of like Robinson Crusoe or in that area, even though they're not, the same theme or mechanics, but Tiny Epic Dungeons. Tiny Epic Dungeons, you're going to be delving down this dungeon. You need to get out before your torchlight fades away. It is a very difficult game, but it's a very fun game, diving into that, flipping new tiles, dealing with the monsters that come out. I just love it. It really gives me the feel of like Descent Journey into the Darkness distilled into a smaller game, and not having to deal with someone having to be the DM or the overboss or whatever you want to call it, and just being able to play through and have the game try to kill you. And it does a pretty good job at it. So if you like dungeon let's call them dungeon delving games, or like Descent Journey in the Darkness or anything in that area, or Arcadia Quest, then you're going to probably love Tiny epic dungeons. So I'd highly recommend that one. Now we're getting in my top 3 here. And one of the games that is a great game that I didn't put in here is Tiny Epic Galaxies. Now, Tiny Epic Galaxies is amazing. However, I didn't want to have 2 slots for similar games. Tiny Epic Galaxies, you'll be exploring the galaxy, and you're going to try to, get your rocket along the track of a planet to claim the planet. You have your own personal board where you're going to be increasing the stats on your that you could do for different things, getting your extra rocket, and you're going to have to deal with managing all that stuff, and your opponent's trying to do the same. Really, really great game. However, Tiny Epic Blast Off, which is pretty much like the streamlined version of Tiny Epic Galaxy, I love. Now it doesn't have, I believe it's called the Satellites expansion, and it might. So it doesn't have the expansion with Tiny Epic Galaxies has, where you can have like asymmetric powers in it. It is just simply Tiny Epic Galaxies streamlined. So keep that in mind. But Tiny Epic Blast Off, I think, is an amazing game. It is a great game to have. You could teach newcomers to the board game hobby, and I think they can have a ton of enjoyment in this game. And it's a really nice sort of race feel to the game, where you're trying to get those plants as fast as possible. And the more players you put in, the more dynamic and good stressful it becomes. And that is Tiny Epic Blast Off or Galaxies. You could swap them here. I just didn't want to have like 2 different slots for theoretically the same game, and I just think Tiny Epic Blast Off is better, just being streamlined, and also the components they used made everything a little bit more clear throughout the game. So that's it. My top 2 games. So number 2 is Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. Now, Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be genetically engineering dinosaurs. So what do you think? You're going to be doing a park? No. I really appreciate that. There's tons of Jurassic Park-like games out there. This one, you're going to be like dino ranchers. You are actually breeding and developing the dinosaurs to sell to these parks. So that is your job throughout the game. There's a lot of management in this game of making sure that you can feed all your dinosaurs and not have them run away, creating pens on there, and being able to have like a diverse selection of dinosaurs to meet these different orders. The game itself at the core is going to be an order fulfillment game, but there is a really nice management game there with your player board, trying to manage the fences and the dinosaurs and making sure that you're managing your ranch properly. So not only do you not have to deal with deficits of losing dinosaurs, but you can fulfill these larger contracts. So I really love the gameplay of Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. I think it is amazing. And it was my top Tiny Epic game until I played my number 1 Tiny Epic game, which is Tiny Epic Pirates. Tiny Epic Pirates. Now, I am a sucker for pirate games. I really like pirate games. It's probably one of my favorite themes in board games. And Tiny Epic Pirates, in this very small game, has the feeling of a sandbox style game in there. There's a lot of different decisions you can make in the game, and you're not bound by any one of them. So you have the opportunity in Tiny Epic Pirates to do mercantile action. Now you're going to be acquiring this booty, probably from nefarious means to get it, but the mercantile idea is still there. You're still going to be going and selling those. And you do need to do a little bit of that either way, but basically throughout the game it's going to be a race game. You're going to try to bury 3 treasures and be the first one to do it. First one to bury 3 treasures automatically wins, game's over. So you don't have to worry about ties or anything. It's straight up race game. You can attack opponents to raise your, what do they call it? It's not your legendary level, but your infamy level. And raising your infamy level unlocks new abilities and makes stuff well, not really abilities, but it makes all your stuff stronger. So really fun in that, but you have to balance that out between just pure going out and getting gold. You can explore. There's little explore tokens you can flip over. You can attack these merchant ships. You can focus on selling your goods to the different forts or cities or whatever, and getting your gold for that. A lot of different decisions in Tiny Epic Pirates, and my favorite Tiny Epic game. Now, games like Tiny Epic Western dropped off my list. And Tiny Epic Western is a great game, but it's very hard to get to the table. I don't know if it's a theme or it's a little bit more involved than the other Tiny Epic games, but I just haven't been playing it. So if you're wondering about that one, it didn't make my list. I would really love if you put in the comments what your favorite Tiny Epic games are, and if you have time, why. I'm really interested to see what other Tiny Epic games people like. But in general, I will say Gameland Games does a really good job of taking all different styles of games, distilling them down into these tiny boxes, and putting them out. I really like that I have like a diverse collection of board games that is basically like this tall, so, and this wide. So it's really nice. Really love the Gameland Games Tiny Epic line. I can't wait to see Tiny Epic Vikings. That game looks amazing. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to the games they put out in the future. So that was my top 10 list for Tiny Epic games by Gameland Games. Thank you for watching.